Okay guys, I want to try to show you what's going on here with your timed color changing screen, and I want to do it in a way that makes sense, keeps it as simple as possible, but at the same time doesn't give you the answers, because there are several ways to actually pull this off. I've got Komodo open here, and I've got 4 examples already coded and ready to go. As you can see in the background, I've already got some screens busy changing color back there that we're going to look at in just a second. But here's the first and the simplest way. And all I'm doing here is I'm going to use that SetInterval command. And the SetInterval has to run some kind of function, and in this case I'm going to run the function right here, all right inside the command. So I'm going to create an anonymous function, there's my curly brace, and I'm going to tell it to change the color based on an array. Well, this is easy. Here's my array, my color, and I've got just some words in here. So color X, and then after it changes color X, by the way, X is 0. After it changes color X, it is going to increment X by 1, so next time through X will be 1. And if X happens to get greater than the length of the color array, then X is going to be reset to 0, and the time limit here, this interval, is 500 milliseconds. So first thing it does is it flashes red on the screen, 500 milliseconds later black, then white, then green, then blue, then yellow. An example of that working will be over here. Nope, not that one, sorry. This one. Okay, just very quickly cycling through colors, which I think is kind of what you guys wanted, except I believe you were probably going for a shorter interval, so maybe 100 rather than 500. However, you see this window right here beside it, it is doing the exact same thing. They're on slightly different time frames, but same thing. Here's how that's possible. Okay, one last look at this one. Everything on one line. We can also break it up so that we've still got our SetInterval command, but our SetInterval now runs a different function by the name of change color every 500 milliseconds. And change color does exactly what we were doing in the last program. So let me just move this over here. We've still got our color array. It still has the red, black, white, green, blue. We've still got our variable X set to 0. And here's the function change color. It just does the body BG color changing to color X, incrementing X by 1, and checking to make sure that if X is greater than the total number of items in our array, it gets reset back to 0. So the loops just happen over and over and over. So exactly the same as the previous one, just everything spread out. Oops, everything spread out on several lines spread across a function and a command. So it's easier to read, it's a little easier to edit than this version here. I just like that layout better. Now the other thing you could do, because that is with the SetInterval command, is you could use Timeout. And that's what you guys were trying to use. But Timeout, as you can see, even if it's simple, requires a little bit more code. And here's what you need to do with Timeout. Timeout needs to call a function. And that function can be, you kind of need to do it like this, can be another function or even the same thing. So if we check this out very carefully here, SetTimeout, it's running a function. That function is calling a function called timer every 50 milliseconds. And I've got a curly brace down here, so we know this is at the end of something. And if we just follow that up, oh look, my function name is timer. So this is a function that once it's complete, it calls itself to restart again in 50 milliseconds. So what's happening here is the page loads and the timer function starts. And the first thing it does is change the background color to color X plus color Y plus color Z, because this time I'm not just doing words. I'm going to try to combine them just like you guys were combining them in your color chart. I also had it do a little document write while I was troubleshooting because it didn't work right off the bat. And so that's commented out for now. But now here's what happens with set timeout instead of set interval. You really want to use some if statements in here, because the interval is just going to keep looping over and over and over, whereas the timeout is going to do everything in here and then do that last command, which happens to restart the thing anyway. But if you do loops in here, if I did a for loop or a while loop, all the loops take place before it ever gets back down to the set timeout, which means you never see your colors change, which is what you guys are running into. Everything's happening so fast up here, by the time you get down here, it's all done. So here's what you have to do instead of using for loops in here. Just some if statements. So check and see if Z is less than, so I already have Z here set to 0. I'm using X, Y, Z as my 3 values coming out of here. So initially I'm going to get 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. But check to see if Z is less than the length of that array, minus 1, because I was going off the end of the array without doing the minus 1. If it is less, increment it. So go up by 1. If you're not less, that's where the else if comes in. So if Z is not less than the color length, then skip down and check Y. Is Y less than the color length? If it is, great, add 1 to it. If it's not less, go check the next one, X. If it's less than the color length, great, add 1 to that. Meanwhile, you've just managed to set X, Y, and Z. If all of them are bigger than the color length, then set them all back to 0 so you can start over. And restart your timer, and you go back up here, and the first thing it does again is set the body background color. Okay, so the way this is going to work, think this through very carefully. If Z is 0, so it's less than color length, we're going to make Z 1. All of these are else ifs, so they won't happen if the first one happens. So Z is now 1, Y is going to stay 0, X is going to stay 0. We don't trigger the else, which means we start the whole function over, which means we change the background color based on Z being in position 1, which is 10. Then we do it again. Z becomes 2. These stay 0. Nothing gets reset. We restart the function, which means we change the background color, but now Z is 2, so we got 20 there. And it just keeps going like that. So that's another way to do it. I wouldn't call it simple way, but it's definitely a way to do it. And if I just flash back to the earlier code, much easier with set interval, even if you do break it up into its own function. Now, it can get even more interesting. Try this one. Oops, I scrolled up too far. Okay. Now, just take a quick look at my array, and you can already figure out probably what I'm about to do. Instead of double digits up there, I've got single digits. And so what I'm going to try to do now is pair those single digits up in my programs to make the pairs. So I've got R for red, double R for the second digit of red, G for green, double G, B for blue, double blue, so RGB, red, green, blue. Those are the colors that make up everything you can see on your monitor. I've still got a timer function here. It's still doing the same body background color changing, but instead of just XYZ, now it's doing R plus double R plus G plus double G plus B plus double B. It's getting all 6 digits. And we're doing the same kind of thing here. We're checking the length of BB, and then if that fails, if BB is maxed out, it's going to check the length of just B, but instead of just changing B because that's kind of abrupt. I set BB back to 1, and we did this all again. So it makes for a much smoother cycle change, and in fact you end up seeing a lot more colors. Now what I'm going to do is jump over here to one of my examples. That's not the example. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, here's the example. I'll even zoom in here for you. So there's my screen, slowly changing colors. If I look down, I've got the code inspector open, and you can see how quickly those colors are changing. Okay, now I've got all 4 examples on the screen. So this one right here, that was the compressed SetInterval code. That's everything on one line. This one beside it was the SetInterval code calling for a function that separated everything out. This one here was using the SetTimeout and just going through using the pairs of hexadecimal codes like you used in your table, your color chart generator. And this one here is the one we just looked at, where everything is single digit, and the program puts it all together and runs it as fast as it possibly can. The delay for this one, by the way, is 1 millisecond, and it still hasn't completed a full cycle yet. So if I scroll down, I've got all my else if statements, and at the bottom I reset everything to 0. There's your set timeout, there's your function call to the timer, and there's the delay, 1 millisecond. It can't operate any faster than that. And it's been running here for at least 20 minutes, and we haven't even started counting this final digit over here. It's still working on these others. Okay, hopefully that's all the help you need to get your automatic color changer working.